Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Talking News from Sight for White. This week we're bringing you something a little different, our very first mid-year Christmas Eve edition, as we get ready to welcome everyone to our Christmas in July event this Saturday on the 4th of July. Yes, Christmas has arrived early at Millbrook House. The decorations are coming out, the festive spirit is building, and we're looking forward to a cheerful summer celebration with our members, volunteers, family, friends, and the wider community. We would love to see as many of you there as possible. There'll be festive stalls, crafts, activities, raffle opportunities, refreshments, and plenty of chances to come together, have a chat, support the charity, and enjoy a warm community atmosphere. Events like this are not just about fundraising, although every pound really does help. They're also about connection. They give people the chance to meet others, enjoy a safe and welcoming space, and it helps keep Sight for White visible in the community. So please do come along, bring a friend, invite your family, and help us make the day a real success. We've also continued conversations with our local partners about accessibility, health, transport, and community inclusion. Our work with the local GP surgeries through the Hello Everyone QR code project remains an important part of helping people find accessible information and routes into support. But we're also exploring more opportunities for inclusive activities, including outdoor and wellbeing experiences for members who would like to try something new. And apologies that this is taking a little bit longer than I would have liked to sort out and get arranged, but it's really important that we do these new creative experiences as safely as possible. So thank you for bearing with me, thank you for your patience, and I will keep you posted as things progress. As always, none of this work would be possible without our staff and volunteers, trustees, members and supporters. So whether you give your time, donate items, attend events, help with transport, support in our shop, or simply just spread the word, you're part of what keeps Sight for White moving forward. So as we head into our mid-year Christmas Eve, I would like to say a very festive thank you to everyone who's helping prepare for our Saturday event. Please do come and join us at Christmas in July this Saturday. Your support will help us raise vital funds, raise awareness, and bring the community together. So from us all at Sight for White, we wish you a cheerful, sunny, and slightly unusual Christmas in July. We hope to see you all on Saturday. Take care.
Here is this week's charity news, beginning 6th of July 2026. Swimming at Medina is on Monday between 1:15 p.m. and 2 p.m. We have the whole pool, so whether you wish to swim lanes or just have gentle exercise in the pool, you will be made very welcome. The cost is £6 and transport is available, although limited. All members are very welcome to join.
Tandem biking is now on a Tuesday along the Cowes cycle track. If you would like to go on a tandem, please do not hesitate to call the office and we can arrange a suitable time.
Our next God's Hill coffee morning is on Tuesday at the Old Smithy Coffee Shop from 10:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. Our volunteers will be on hand to chat.
Yoga will now restart in September at Millbrook House at 2 o'clock. If you would like to join the group, please call the office and ask for more details.
Coffee and chat is on Wednesday, starting at 10 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. The cost is £2 to include drinks and cake. Staff are on hand to help with any queries and to demonstrate equipment.
We have Dave from Synaptic joining us for our coffee and chat morning on Wednesday the 22nd of July from 10 o'clock until 1 o'clock. Following this is a message from Dave about who Synaptic support and what they will be bringing along with them. Here at Synaptic, our mission is to design easy-to-use products that ensure people with sight loss have access to mainstream mobile technology, regardless of their previous experience or ability. We pride ourselves on our unique understanding of the needs of people with sight loss and the challenges they can face when accessing technology. Customer-led design is at the heart of what we do. This is reflected in our award-winning and innovative products, which are designed to open up access to the latest technology in a way that is easy and intuitive to use. We have easy-to-use phones, tablets, smartwatches and accessories, whatever your level of sight loss.
Mix and Mingle is on Thursday at Millbrook House. This group enjoys crafts, quizzes, and entertainment. If you would like to put your name down on the list, please call the office.
We have trips on the Spirit of Scott Barder available. This is a catamaran and will sail from East Cowes for half a day or a full day sailing in the Solent. For more information, please call the office.
Sainsbury's Newport has changed their shop layout following major refurbishment. If anyone would like to book a route familiarization session with Emma, our trainee mobility officer, please call the office and she will be able to book you in a time.
This is an urgent appeal to anyone who you may know that could drive our minibus. We are in desperate need for volunteers to drive it, especially on a Thursday afternoon. If you have a neighbour, friend, relation who may be interested, please ask them to call the office and speak to Susan.
Our next walk and talk group is coming up on Friday. This time it is a circular walk around Parkhurst Forest with a picnic provided with cakes and drinks. The minibus will leave Millbrook House at 9:30 a.m., pick up from the bus station at 9:45 a.m., and the walk will start at 10:15 a.m. If you would like to join this, then please call the office.
Our short story writing competition will be launching in the coming weeks. More information to follow.
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. 3 murder suspects bailed and 4th released after fatal Cowes house fire. 3 men arrested on suspicion of murder have been bailed, and a 4th man has been released with no further action following last week's fatal house fire in Cowes. The homicide investigation was launched on Friday after a fire tore through a property in Ronson's Close during the early hours of the morning, partially destroying 3 family homes. Firefighters discovered the body of a man in his 20s inside a bedroom as they brought the blaze under control. It is thought 2 other people managed to escape the flames. A 24-year-old man from Cowes who'd remained in custody after detectives secured additional time to question him has now been bailed with conditions until 27th of September. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary confirmed that on Wednesday. A second 24-year-old man, also from Cowes, was arrested on suspicion of murder and arson with intent to endanger life. He too has been bailed with conditions until September, while inquiries continue, as has a 28-year-old man from Ventnor, the first of 4 people to be held over the suspicious death. However, a 59-year-old man from Cowes, who was also arrested on suspicion of murder and arson with intent to endanger life, has now been released from bail and will face no further action in relation to those offences. Detectives leading Operation Windstone have been unable to secure enough evidence to be granted a charging decision by the Crown Prosecution Service, meaning efforts to continue to identify a prime suspect in the murder investigation. The man who died has not yet been formally identified by police, although his next of kin have been informed and continue to be supported by specialist officers.
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. Isle of Wight phlebotomy team gains national accreditation for learning disability support. The phlebotomy team at Isle of Wight NHS Trust has been awarded national accreditation in recognition of its support for people with learning disabilities. The Level 1 Learning Disability Friendly Accreditation is presented to clinical teams that provide safe, inclusive and person-centred care. People with lived experience involved in the assessment process, working alongside healthcare professionals to review evidence and evaluate services. Shannon Bridget, phlebotomist, who led the accreditation process, said, "I wanted every individual who came to our clinic to feel safe, understood and respected. I worked closely with our staff to build confidence, improve communication and ensure that reasonable adjustments became part of our everyday practice rather than an afterthought." Achieving our Level 1 Learning Disability Accreditation isn't just a milestone, it reflects the genuine care and commitment our department now brings to every patient experience. People with learning disabilities can face additional barriers when accessing healthcare, and the accreditation aims to help reduce inequalities while encouraging continuous improvements in patient care. The Learning Disability Liaison Team, run by Hampshire and Isle of Wight Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust, alongside services at St Mary's Hospital, hopes all clinical areas will eventually achieve the accreditation. Stephen Reynolds, Learning Disability Liaison Nurse Specialist, said, "I'm proud to congratulate another team at the hospital who are championing inclusive care and making meaningful changes for patients with learning disabilities. We hope their success will inspire other teams to follow suit and continue building a more accessible and inclusive healthcare environment for all."
Halifax to disappear from Newport High Street under major Lloyds shake-up, from the Island Echo, read by Lee. The Halifax branch in Newport looks set to close under a major shake-up announced by Lloyds Banking Group today, Wednesday, with customers expected to be served from the existing Lloyds Bank branch just around the corner instead. It has been revealed that the Halifax brand will be phased out and replaced by Lloyds across England, Wales and Northern Ireland, with changes beginning in the coming months and branch changes taking place throughout 2027. While the banking giant says many Halifax branches will simply be rebranded as Lloyds, it has confirmed that where another Lloyds branch is already nearby, such as in Newport, customers will instead be served by the existing Lloyds branch. With Newport already home to both a Halifax branch on High Street and a Lloyds branch in St Thomas's Square, the announcement strongly suggests the town's Halifax premises will close. Under the plans, Halifax customers will keep the same sort code and account number, while everything from the familiar app experience to branch staff will remain largely unchanged as accounts transition to the Lloyds brand over time. Halifax will stop opening new accounts. Lloyds Banking Group says customers do not need to take any action at this stage and will be contacted directly before any changes take effect. Jazz Singh, CEO Consumer Relationships at Lloyds Banking Group, has said, "As Halifax changes to Lloyds, our Halifax customers will keep everything they know and love today. The same fantastic app design, the same friendly faces in our branches, even the same sort code and account number. But as Lloyds customers, they get the best innovation and experiences we offer." He added, Our Lloyds customers are already benefiting from a significant investment into propositions like Club Lloyds, Lloyds Premier, Lloyds Ultra, and Lloyds Rewards. And now we're really excited that Halifax customers can bank on Lloyds for more. The announcement comes just 2 days after plans were confirmed for both B&M and Superdrug to open up new stores at St George's Retail Park, raising questions as to whether or not their 2 existing high street premises will close. Should Halifax, B&M and Superdrug leave their high street locations, Newport could soon be facing the prospect of another 3 prominent empty commercial units in its town centre.
This is Chris, reading an article from the Island Echo. Ride rowers celebrate double success at South Sea Regatta. Ride Rowing Club claimed 2 victories at the country's largest one-day regatta, as 11 crews and scullers took on strong opposition in near-perfect conditions. Whitelink-sponsored Ride Rowing Club enjoyed a successful day at the South Sea Regatta on Saturday, the 27th of June, returning home with 2 wins from the country's largest one-day rowing regatta. The event is the only regatta in the Hants and Dorset Amateur Rowing Association calendar, where crews and scullers from both the Hants and Dorset ARA and Coast ARA, Kent and Sussex, compete against each other ahead of the South Coast Rowing Championships, which will be hosted by Deal Rowing Club in September. Ride's newly formed Open Novice 4 of Lucas Giorgio, Harry Crofts, Max Locke and Cameron Darcy, with Harry Watts coxing, finished 3rd in their heat to qualify for the final, where they were placed 5th. The women's senior 4 of Lisa Murphy, Abby Locke, Maggie Sanderson and Claire Gordon, with Mai Reed coxing, competed despite being a Masters 40 crew and finished 7th in the final. With Fiona Owen replacing Claire Gordon, the crew then raced in the Women's Masters 40 event, finishing 4th. That switch allowed Ride's Seniors Open Women's 4 of Stella Baisley, Alexis Owen, Fiona Owen and Emily Kellerman, coxed by Ruby Reid, to compete in the Women's Junior Senior 4s, an event not usually held at a Hants and Dorset regatta. They made the most of the opportunity by recording a comfortable victory. The Women's Novice 4 of Demi Crenham, Ede, Abby Bird, Claire Gordon and Polly Townsend, with May Reid coxing, finished 5th in their heat, narrowly missing out on a place in the final. Ride Junior 16 Boys Quad of Joe Bird, Harry Watts, Cameron Darcy and Max Locke, coxed by Mai Reid, produced a creditable 4th place finish. 14-year-old Harry Watts, usually a coxswain, was making his competitive debut as an oarsman. There was further success in the sculling events, with Charlie Watts reaching the novice single sculls final after finishing 3rd in his heat, before going on to win the event. Isaac Gibson narrowly missed out on the final after placing 5th in his heat, while Joe Bird finished 8th in his. In the women's novice single sculls, Stella Baisley and Alexis Owen both qualified for the final after finishing 3rd and 4th respectively in their heats. Alexis went on to finish 4th in the final, with Stella taking 5th. Ride also provided support to rival clubs during the regatta, with Rosie Morris coxing for a Christchurch Women's Junior 4 and Ruby Reid steering a Poole Women's Masters 54.
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. Lack of radiotherapy on Isle of Wight having huge impact on cancer patients, report finds. The Isle of Wight's lack of radiotherapy to treat cancer has a huge impact on patients and families, a new report from the island's health watchdog has found. Health Watch Isle of Wight's Cancer Services review highlights the island's absence of the treatment, which uses high-energy radiation such as X-rays to destroy cancer cells and shrink tumours as the single most frequently raised concern in its entire data set. Between February and April, the independent organisation surveyed residents on behalf of Wessex Cancer Alliance to find out what patients, carers and families think about local cancer services. A total of 229 people shared their experiences, from first noticing symptoms to life after treatment. The report sheds light on a series of problems and concerns, including many feeling abandoned at the end of treatment with no clear follow-up plan or emotional support, and some GPs dismissing symptoms for too long, particularly in women and younger patients, leading to delays in support. A patient with colorectal cancer said it took months for the GP surgery to move away from what they thought were menopause symptoms to looking at something more serious. Health Watch also flagged travel to the mainland as the biggest concern, information sharing between hospitals, departments and GPs often being poor, and most people finding out about practical support such as ferry discounts and travel cost refunds by chance rather than at diagnosis. One breast cancer patient said going over to the mainland every day for 3 weeks was exhausting. Positive findings, including praise for cancer nurses at St Mary's Hospital again and again, ongoing chemotherapy being described as outstanding by many residents, and consistent acclaim for the Lighthouse Clinic in Newport. Wessex Cancer Support Trust, Mountbatten Isle of Wight and the Daisy Ring bus were also described as making a real difference. Health Watch made several recommendations on the back of the research, such as clear public information on radiotherapy provision, sharing travel support schemes at diagnosis, building a structured aftercare pathway with proactive contact after treatment ends, and routine access to psychological support. Addressed to Wessex Cancer Alliance, NHS Hampshire and the Isle of Wight NHS Trust and wider system partners, the improvement points are based directly on what residents told the watchdog. Health Watch has said it will monitor progress and publish an update in October. The watchdog hosted a community event, Coming Together for Cancer, at the Riverside Centre in Newport on Wednesday, July the 1st. The forum was an opportunity for system partners to hear directly from people who lived with experience and work together on what needs to change.
Increasing numbers of fly tipping incidents recorded across the Isle of Wight from the Isle of Wight Radio, read by Lee. More than 200 fly tipping incidents were recorded by the Isle of Wight Council in the first 3 months of this year, over a dozen more than in the last months of 2025. A total of 203 cases were documented between January and March, up from 188 during the end of 2025, with the overwhelming majority of cases continuing to occur on highways and very few on footpaths or bridleways. These are the findings of an Isle of Wight Council Environment and Community Protection Committee report, which says fly tipping pressures remain persistent through the winter. The distribution of incidents reinforces the well-established pattern of fly tipping being concentrated in highly accessible and visible areas, particularly where vehicles can stop briefly without challenge, the paper says. Household waste remained dominant, with over half of all incidents categorised as mixed or other household waste and black bag rubbish, also forming a large proportion. The committee report says construction and demolition waste continued to appear at lower but consistent levels, alongside vehicle parts and white goods, while no incidents involving animal carcasses, asbestos or clinical waste were recorded. This profile indicates that fly tipping during January to March was driven primarily by domestic disposal behaviours, supplemented by intermittent small-scale trade waste rather than organised hazardous dumping. Most incidents involved small to medium volumes, with transit vans and small vans comprising the largest share, followed by car boot-sized loads and single items. To tackle the issue, the Council has pointed to long-term behavioural change, accessible and responsive waste services, targeted hotspot management and visible enforcement, rather than short-term or seasonal interventions.
This is the second part of the Talking News, read by Lynn.
And Gerard.
An Isle of Wight hosepipe ban from next Friday. Islanders and people across Hampshire are being asked to ditch their hosepipes to protect the environment and keep taps flowing this summer. The temporary use ban, better known as a hosepipe ban, follows the warmest spring on record and a record-breaking heatwave, with forecasts suggesting more hot, dry weather ahead. River levels in the Test, one of the world's rarest chalk streams and the main source of water for the region, are now critically low, down 25% on normal levels. Tanya Flask of Southern Water said, "We're working round the clock to keep taps flowing and protect the River Test, which is at a critically low level following recent hot weather. After a record year of leakage reduction last year, we've cut leaks even further by almost a quarter in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight." She urged customers to start reducing water use now, ahead of the ban coming into force on July the 10th, which is next Friday, to help protect the region's rare chalk stream habitats. Southern Water teams are using smart technology, drones, and even specially trained dogs to detect leaks, while investing heavily in new reservoirs, pipelines, and recycling schemes to reduce pressure on rivers long term. Residents are asked not to use hose pipes for watering gardens, washing cars, or filling paddling pools. A hose pipe uses 1,000 litres an hour, roughly one person's weekly water use. Full details and exemptions, which include for blue badge holders and pet, livestock and fish welfare, and water-saving tips, are available via isleofwight.observer/hosepipe-ban.
Violence and drugs rising inside HMP prison Isle of Wight. The latest unannounced inspection of HMP Isle of Wight, carried out from March the 16th to March the 26th by a team of 21 inspectors and published on Monday, paints a picture of a prison struggling with aging infrastructure, staff shortages, and a regime that leaves too many men locked up behind their doors for long periods. While there were signs of improvement in some areas, HM Chief Officer of Prison Charlie Taylor concluded that the jail continued to significantly underperform. Inspectors found that outcomes for prisoners remained not sufficiently good in safety, respect, and purposeful activity, and there were not enough incentives to encourage prisoners to behave well. Preparation for release had improved to reasonably good, but the prison's overall direction was hampered by a sprawling site, particularly the Albany side, which was described as not fit for purpose. One of the most troubling findings was the rise in violence and drug availability in the Inspectorate survey. 56% of prisoners said drugs were easy to obtain, a sharp increase from the previous inspection in 2022. Violence was also up, driven by debt, illicit substances, and bullying. Staff shortages meant leaders had to redeploy officers to keep the segregation unit safe, leaving gaps elsewhere. Conditions on the segregation unit were described as poor, with some men only able to shower every other day. Across the prison, inspectors found that a third of prisoners were locked in their cells and too few were accessing education or workshops. Attendance in education was unacceptably poor, with many classes cancelled due to difficulties recruiting trainers. Infrastructure and care concerns. The Albany site's electronic night sanitation system was singled out as indecent and unhygienic. Prisoners have just 7 minutes to use communal toilets before being locked back in their cells, leading some to resort to buckets with waste reportedly strewn from windows at night. Self-harm rates are the 5th highest of the male prison estate, although 5 highly complex prisoners were responsible for half of all the incidents. A total of 124 out of 961 inmates had self-harmed in the previous year. Although mental health support for the most seriously ill had improved, staffing shortages meant many prisoners were not receiving adequate care. Substance misuse services were also too limited for inmates' needs. Inspectors did highlight pockets of good practice, including a dedicated unit to help those who had experienced trauma to address their offending behavior, a strong reading strategy, and a well-structured induction program. The senior probation officer and psychology teams were praised for creating a more rehabilitative environment. The governor, Dougie Graham, in post since May 2018, was described as well regarded, but leaders, Mr. Taylor said, must be more imaginative about how to incentivize prisoners to behave well and ensure that activity, education, and support are consistently available. The prison service must improve the staffing profiles in this complex site and fund improvements in the infrastructure and buildings, he added, to enable HMP Aloha to fulfill its role as a Category B training establishment.
The NHS Trust is told to improve following the first CQC review. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust has been rated requires improvement following its first Care Quality Commission CQC inspection since the merger of 4 separate trusts that created the organisation in October 2024. The trust, which now oversees all community and mental health services across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, employs around 13,000 staff and operates more than 500 sites. Inspectors visited sites in November 2025, including 7 Acres, and reviewed board papers, governance systems, and feedback from staff, patients and carers. The report highlights significant work to bring the separate organisations together, with a commitment to compassionate leadership and a new strategy for 25 to 2030. Staff across the Trust, including those on the island, were praised for their clear passion to deliver good quality care. Lived experience leaders have been appointed, and the Freedom to Speak Up team was described as positive and well known among staff. However, inspectors found a number of serious cultural and leadership challenges. Frontline staff reported inconsistent local leadership and said senior leaders were not always visible. Governance systems were still bedding in, with overlapping responsibilities and no target dates for key actions. Equality, diversity and inclusion work was described as being in its infancy, and many staff reporting limited promotion opportunities. Serena Coleman, CQC's Deputy Director of Mental Health in the South, said the transformation hadn't fully embedded or reached frontline services, and this was impacting staff morale, adding that almost 20% of staff were reluctant to raise concerns because they feared nothing would be done or worried about retribution. Inspectors also found learning from safety incidents was not always shared quickly enough. Some acute mental health staff felt safety concerns were overlooked and that unsafe admissions were affecting staff well-being and other patients. Incompatible electronic systems were used, creating risks that important clinical information could be lost and making training difficult. Feedback gathered through Mental Health Act monitoring visits was positive, with people saying staff went above and beyond to help them. Carers also praised communication and involvement in care planning, though staffing changes sometimes affected continuity of care. The Trust aims to reduce health inequalities across the 2 counties. Inspectors noted early progress but said data was limited as the organisation continues to transition from its merger to business as usual. The CQC also highlighted strong partnership working and praised the Trust's commitment to learning and innovation, noting it ranked 4th out of 43 mental health trusts for clinical research and is using virtual psychologists and consultants to improve access to care.
Fire-hit Chippy finds new home. There is a ray of hope on the horizon for Harrison Booth and the Codfather following the devastating fire which destroyed his fish and chip shop on Ryde Esplanade at the end of May. Harrison has opened a pop-up Chippy at the Sunrise Hotel in Hope Road, Shanklin, as he waits for his family business to be rebuilt following the damage. Harrison, who took over from his father in 2019, said, "Personally, the fire has hit me quite badly. I am not used to doing nothing, but the Codfather can't open until it has been completely refurbished. It could be anything between 3 and 6 months, so it may be early 2027. He has been given the opportunity to work from a kitchen in the Sunrise Hotel by his friend Steve Bridgman, its owner, with Harrison saying, "We got to know each other through rugby. Steve is a referee and I am a coach. He said he had a kitchen in the hotel which was not being used, so it's ideal. We've had to beg, borrow and steal equipment over the last few weeks to get the kitchen fitted out, and it's been a lot of hard work. But we are now ready to open. Obviously, I want to get back working again. But this is not just about me. Over the years, we have encouraged young kids who might be off to university to get trained up in the winter and ready to work in the summer to earn some money. These are all good kids, and we want to give them a chance. They are ready to work for us and have now missed the chance to work elsewhere because the summer part-time jobs have been filled. So we are hoping to give them the chance to get started. The new fish and chip shop opened last evening, Thursday, and Harrison is planning to open 7 days a week, between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m., as well as serving takeaways. There is space to eat on the premises with outstanding sea views, and he also plans to go to do deliveries locally to Shanklin, Sandown, Lake, and Bembridge. He added, "I'm hoping a few of my regular customers will come over and support me, and we are also able to serve beer on draft because we have beer taps. This has been a real challenge, but have been supported by Steve and my manager, Jazz Dale. Without her help, I could not have done it. She has been unreal. I can't describe how much she has done."
Men turned away from prostate tests. There is a major problem with prostate cancer support, and men approaching doctors for tests are being turned away. This emerged at a public meeting on Wednesday. Alan Taylor, from the Isle of Wight Prostate Cancer Support Group, spoke out at a landmark event at the Riverside Centre, organised by Health Watch Isle of Wight, and attended by over 70 patients, carers, health professionals and members of the public. Mr. Taylor said the charity tests 2,000 men each year, with 200 receiving abnormal results, who then require a visit to a doctor. 2017, we decided trying to do PSA testing because we were talking to men at certain shows around the island and asking them to go and get a PSA test, Mr. Taylor said. They were talking to us 3 months later at another show saying we approached the doctors and they were turning us away. That's still happening today. Even the day before yesterday, when I stood outside Tesco's in Freshwater and spoke to men there, they'd been turned away. The doctors say, "Don't worry about this group, they don't know what they're doing, they've got no medical qualifications." Mr. Taylor said there was a problem at GP level, which he said he raised in 2016, when he was reassured that something would be done. He also pointed to a lack of information on different treatments for patients and inadequate support after diagnosis. Dr. David Isaac, a GP on the Coming Together for Cancer event panel, said, "Alan, you know this is a national debate. It's in the newspapers every week. There have been high-profile cases, Chris Hoy being one of the recent ones, and Jeremy Clarkson. There's a massive number of men with prostate cancer, and you and I know prostate cancer is the least straightforward cancer. It's a really difficult one to know what the best option is." You're quite right. How do you know when you're offering someone 4 treatments which one's going to be the best one? He added it was something that doctors nationally are trying to unravel. Dr. Isaac referred to advice given to the government from former National Cancer Director Professor Mike Richards, but said the Health Secretary Wes Streeting resigned before he had a chance to consider it. He also mentioned the massive Transform study, a 60 million prostate cancer screening trial with results currently being awaited. Mr. Taylor said there are 13,000 men dying each year and that his support group should not need to exist, with a helpline he mans 24/7.
Young father and chef's death began with sprain. A young father and well-known chef died after an ankle sprain at work developed into deep vein thrombosis and a massive blood clot an inquest has heard. Louis Gregory of Newport was pronounced dead on the 9th of November 2021, aged just 23. An inquest into his death was opened on the 24th of June 2022. Resuming on Monday, 4 years on, a jury was sworn in to establish what happened, leading to his death. Coroner Caroline Sommeray explained the delay was down to the COVID pandemic and inquests not being heard in the Crown Court during this time. The jury was told that Louis suffered an accident at the Castle Inn, Newport, where he worked, 11 days before his death, on the 29th of October 2021. It was heard how Louis went into a chilled room which had a significant step to negotiate. While no one witnessed what happened, it was said he jumped out of the chiller and badly sprained his ankle. He was told to go to the hospital by his employers, but did not do so, the inquest heard. Although the accident was logged at work, a reporting of injuries, disease, and dangerous occurrences regulations, RIDO, report was not, but at the point, no one had realized the significance, Ms. Sommeray said. Louis' ankles was sore, but was sore to put weight on, and by November 9th, his condition had deteriorated. He developed a cough and had become clammy and breathless. Paramedics were called and determined it was neither a chest infection or a pulmonary embolism. He was taken to hospital and an ECG and CT pulmonary angiogram confirmed he had a large pulmonary embolism. That evening he became unwell and went into cardiac arrest. Louis was ventilated, given a clot-busting drug, and CPR was carried out for an hour, but by 9 p.m. he was pronounced dead. A post-mortem carried out by Dr. Adnan Al-Badri determined that reduced mobility due to trauma to the right ankle led to deep vein thrombosis, which developed up the body and became a massive pulmonary embolism. Contributory factors included morbid obesity, cardiac hypertrophy, myocardial fibrosis, and severe fatty changes to the liver. In the aftermath of his death, a fundraiser was launched to support his family, including his fiancée and young daughter. The jury were this week hearing from a number of witnesses, including representatives from the Alawite NHS Trust, one of the owners of the Castle Inn, and the Alawite Council's Environmental Health Department. The inquest continues.
Stop flushing wipes, says Southern Water. Wet wipes are creating a growing problem for the Isle of Wight sewer network, with Southern Water estimating that around 30 million wipes are removed from island pipes every year, more than 200 wipes for every resident. Across the southeast, the picture is even more dramatic. Southern Water Teams removes around 1 billion wipes annually. Stretched end to end, they would reach more than 111,000 miles, or 4.5 times around the Earth. In weight, that's 4,500 tonnes, the equivalent of 30 adult blue whales. Wet wipes are one of the biggest causes of sewer blockages. Between 2020 and 2025, they were behind 59% of all blockages cleared by Southern Water. Matt Collins, the company's fats, oils, grease and unflushables manager said his team deals with around 30,000 blockages every year, many of which could be avoided if wipes were put in the bin instead of flushed. He explained that wet wipes, even those labelled flushable, do not break down quickly enough. They snag inside pipes and bind with fats to form fatbergs that choke the system. A ban on selling wet wipes containing plastic comes into force in spring 2027, but Mr. Collins warns that flushable wipes can still cause serious blockages. The consequences are familiar on the island: flooding, costly clean-ups and environmental harm. Surveys of UK beaches have found an average of 20 wipes per 100 metres of coastline. Southern Water's advice is simple. Only flush the 3 P's down the loo: pee, paper and poo. Everything else should go in the bin.
Marina fraud probe. 37-year-old arrested. A 37-year-old man from Ryde has been arrested on suspicion of fraud by abusing of position relating to Ryde Marina. Police said the man has been released under investigation while enquiries continue. In December, it emerged that a probe was underway into reports of alleged employee fraud at Ryde Marina, which is run by Ryde Town Council. It is understood to relate to thousands of pounds from the public purse. Alleged financial irregularities were discovered at the marina in October 2025, according to a Town Council officer report. It said there were clear financial procedures in place to protect the council funds, along with training provided to relevant staff, which was refreshed in April 2025. Despite this, it is claimed a breach of process was achieved and fraud committed. The statement continued, "Since this breach, significant levels of investigation have been undertaken, along with a full review of the income procedures for Ryde Marina. A new marina management system has been rolled out, which moves away from using more manual processes for logging berths, visitors, and general sales. Regular councillor scrutiny checks of Ryde Marina will be in place to further ensure the council is taking all possible steps to protect public funds."
The festival has changed but stayed the same. As someone who attended the original Isle of Wight festival, I can't help noticing how alike in some ways the Sea Close festival goers are to the 250,000 who made their way to Afton in 1970. Indeed, in terms of dress, many of the Afton festival goers would probably pass unnoticed at Sea Close. At Afton, on that August bank holiday weekend, the promoters, Totland brothers Ronnie and Ray Falk, were apprehensive. The Isle of Wight Council, which at the time included 2 admirals, 1 major, 2 rear admirals, 2 brigadiers, 1 commander and 1 sir, tried their best to stop the festival by making life as difficult as they could for Ronnie and Ray, including forcing the use of a disastrous sight on them. It was overlooked by Afton Down, where, as the council realised only too well, the whole festival could be viewed without a ticket. And it was. Thousands watched for free, and to the delight of the brigadiers, the festival went bust. All of these photographs appeared in the book The View from the Crowd by Alan and Tom Stroud. This was a limited edition run and is no longer available.
Care home told it must improve by inspectors. Kynan's residential home in East Cowes has been told it must improve. Inspectors found its provider in breach of legal regulation relating to governance, and there were other issues. The service, run by Mentfade Limited at 97 York Avenue, has been rated requires improvement by the Care Quality Commission, CQC, which carried out an assessment between the 27th of April and the 14th of May. Kyne's residential home provides accommodation and personal care for older people, some of whom may be living with dementia. An inspection report said care was not always provided in a person-centered way or consistently delivered. Findings showed the care home's governance systems were not sufficiently robust to identify, assess, and mitigate risks to people's health, safety, and well-being in a timely way, it said. The service was rated good for the CQC's effective, caring, and responsive categories, but requires improvement under safe and well-led. Inspectors said care was not always provided in a person-centered way, and some people, particularly those cared for in bed, received support according to routine practices rather than their individual preferences. There were also examples where care had not been consistently delivered, which impacted on people's dignity and experience. However, the report highlighted positive feedback from people and their relatives about the care provided. The CQC also said staff worked in partnership with external professionals and were able to meet people's health and care needs. Inspectors have asked the provider for an action plan. Kyne's residential home said that while it accepts some of the report's findings and is already working to address identified areas, it does not believe the document reflects the residents' warm, caring atmosphere. A spokesperson said, "We were naturally disappointed to receive an overall requires improvement rating." A CQC inspection provides a snapshot in time. While we respect the inspection process and are committed to continuous improvement, we do not believe this report reflects the full experience of living in our home or the commitment demonstrated by our team over many years. What the report does not fully capture is what our residents and their families experience every day. We are incredibly proud of the relationships we have built, the kindness shown by our staff, and the sense of community within our home. They said feedback from residents and their loved ones is overwhelmingly positive, and the home faced extraordinary challenges throughout the COVID-19 pandemic.
A police dog leads offender to court. A 41-year-old man has been sentenced following his arrest by a police dog unit that tracked him through a cemetery, finding him hiding in undergrowth in East Cowes. The case followed an assault which took place on Friday, July the 11th, 2025, in which a woman suffered minor injuries at an address on Vectis Road, East Cowes. The victim also received multiple unwanted calls and messages on June the 4th and August the 5th, amounting to harassment. On August the 5th, the suspect, Carl Isham, fled from officers across the cemetery in East Cowes, which is when police dog Echo and his handler, Sergeant Charlie Winchester, were deployed. When they arrived, Echo leapt from the vehicle and immediately picked up a scent. He tracked it through the graveyard, over a wall, and into a wooded area where he found Isham hiding. Carl Isham of St Edmund's Walk, Wootton Bridge Ride appeared before Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Thursday, April the 16th, where he pleaded guilty to assault by beating and harassment without violence. He appeared before the same court on Tuesday, June the 30th, where he was handed a 13-week custodial sentence, suspended for 16 months. Isham was also made subject to a restraining order and was ordered to complete rehabilitation activity requirement days and pay £554 in costs and surcharge. Inspector Andrew Moog from Hampshire and Isle of Wight's Joint Operations Unit said, "Police dogs like Echo are an essential part of frontline policing. They can be called to everything from helping to search for missing people, to tracking offenders or property, and time again they help keep our communities safe. In this case, Echo's skills meant this man was found quickly so he could face the consequences of his actions."
Island Swim aims to raise £50,000. A relay team of 5 swimmers will be taking on a 71-mile challenge around the island coastline, aiming to raise £50,000 for Cure Parkinson's on Tuesday. They hope to start the swim off Bembridge Lifeboat Station around 11:30 a.m., depending on the tides, and the effort could take as long as 30 hours. The Wild Pullers team includes Sammy Robertson, whose grandfather, Mark Woodnett, was the Isle of Wight MP throughout the 1960s. Sammy is a family friend of prolific fundraiser John Colcutt, who hosts the famous annual charity party at the Towers, his home in Yarmouth. Sammy, who has swum the Cook Strait between New Zealand's North and South Islands, as well as the English Channel, will be joined by Stu Bowman, Pete Lowe, Alan Lockhurst, and Nick Adams. He said, "John is the glue to the project. Without him, it would not be possible. He will be bringing his crew along to support us and organizing the navigation aspect of the swim. We will be following channel rules, where we each take it in turn to swim for 1 hour. When we change over, the next swimmer jumps in behind, so we do the right distance. There will be no wetsuits either, so we have to endure the cold water. There may be a section we miss because of the tides, so that would put us back 6 hours, but the time doesn't matter." John suffers from Parkinson's, and the charity is so close to our heart. It also means a lot to me, as my parents' ashes were scattered in the sea around the island. Funds raised through the Wild Pullers Challenge, named after a beach shoe designed by Sammy, will go towards research aimed at slowing, stopping, and reversing Parkinson's disease. More information can be obtained at the Isle of Wight Observer.
Supporters step out for blind Isle of Wight veteran. More than 20 family members and friends joined an Isle of Wight veteran for an extra challenging blindfolded fundraising walk in support of Blind Veterans UK. Ian Summers, 46, from Shanklin, organised his annual blindfolded bimble on Saturday to raise money and awareness for the charity, which supports vision-impaired former servicemen and women. A former soldier with the 2nd Battalion Princess of Wales Royal Regiment, Ian served in Iraq, Kuwait and Northern Ireland after joining the army in 2002. Now, in its 3rd year, the fundraising event challenged participants to take it in turns to walk blindfolded while being guided by a partner between Shanklin and Sandown. This year, Ian introduced an added challenge by taking walkers away from the promenade and onto the main road. He said the promenade is a very wide pedestrianised footpath, so I thought I'd add the extra challenge this year of navigating the main road. Participants had to guide each other up and down curbs, across roads and share the space with cars. Ian lost his sight suddenly in 2017 and says Blind Veterans UK transformed his life after he was introduced to the charity the following year. They helped me learn to use a cane so I could walk safely unaided, and provided equipment like a talking microwave, and enabled me to meet other blind veterans. It helped me imagine a life beyond sight loss, he said. Donations can still be made via isleofwight.observer/Bimble.
Council reaffirms pledge to Armed Forces families. Armed Forces Week has been marked on the island with a civic flag raising ceremony at County Hall in Newport. Civic leaders, members of the Armed Forces community, and representatives from local organizations gathered for the annual event, which recognizes the contribution of service personnel, past and present. The Armed Forces flag was raised outside County Hall following a short service honoring the service and sacrifice of military personnel and reaffirming the Council's commitment to the Armed Forces Covenant. Among those attending were Deputy Lieutenant Nicholas Woolton, representing the Lord Lieutenant, the High Sheriff of the Isle of Wight, Nigel Hartley, Deputy Youth MP Arthur Wrigley, Reverend Chris Bradish of Newport Minster, and the Isle of Wight Council's Chief Executive, Wendy Pereira. The flag was raised by Darren Doncasley, a RIMI veteran, an Isle of Wight Council employee. Representatives from the police, the ambulance service, and the Royal British Legion were also attended alongside councillors and council officers. Councillor Ian Doe, the council's chairman and Armed Forces champion, said the annual ceremony was an important moment to recognize those who serve the country at home and overseas. He added, "We remain fully committed to ensuring that members of the Armed Forces community, including service personnel, cadets, reservists, veterans and their families, are treated with fairness, respect and the support they deserve."
The phlebotomy team is praised for support. The Isle of Wight NHS Trust's phlebotomy team has been nationally recognised for its work supporting people with learning disabilities after gaining Level 1 Learning Disability Friendly accreditation. The award highlights clinical areas that provide safe, inclusive and person-centred care and involves people with lived experience working alongside professionals to assess services. Phlebotomist Shannon Bridget led the team's accreditation work, aiming to ensure every patient felt safe, understood and respected. She said the team had focused on improving communication, building staff confidence and making reasonable adjustments, a routine part of care. Achieving Level 1 accreditation reflects the genuine care and commitment our department now brings to every patient experience, she said. The accreditation helps reduce barriers faced by people with learning disabilities when accessing healthcare and supports ongoing improvements. Stephen Reynolds, Learning Disability Liaison Nurse Specialist, said the award recognised the team's dedication, compassion and hard work and hoped it would inspire other departments to follow suit.
Military squad boards ferry in surprising exercise. A military training exercise surprised passengers on a ferry from Southampton to the Isle of Wight. The boarding exercise took place on a 9 a.m. Red Falcon ferry operated by Red Funnel yesterday, Thursday. Passengers were given a warning by the captain that it was a military training exercise before the 3 boats joined the ferry. Each boat had about 8 military personnel on it, with roughly 6 men scaling the side of the ferry and 2 steering the boat. Scott Campbell, 54, was traveling on the ferry for work when he saw the onboarding. He said, "It was a bit of excitement. There was announcement on the radio from the captain that we were getting boarded by the military." Scott said he could tell it was a special forces operation as his son is a former Royal Marine and his friend is former SAS. He added, there were 3 boats and they did 3 lots of boarding exercises. Each boat had 6 guys in it doing the exercise. They drew a bit of a crowd. People all came to one side of the boat to look. A lot of kids were there in awe of these guys. They are SAS, so they are the best of the best.
The festival seeks island writers. Island authors are being invited to showcase their work at this year's Isle of Wight Literary Festival. The festival's Write on Wight programme returns for a 3rd year at Northwood House, Cowes, from October the 8th to the 11th, giving local writers the chance to reach new readers. The programme is open to island authors working across a range of genres, including fiction, poetry, memoir and island history. This year, Write on Wight is being sponsored by Robertson Foster, the island-based communications and public relations consultancy, which also supports the festival's marketing and communications. Write on Wight includes author, where aspiring writers have 2 minutes to pitch their book idea to a live audience. The event will again be hosted by Jean G. Owen of Figlet Press, who will also launch issue 6 of the Figlet Anthology of Island Writing later that evening. The Writers' Marketplace will give authors the chance to set up a stall, sell their books and meet visitors to the festival. Paul Armfield, the manager of Medina Bookshop and Write on Wight coordinator, said the programme celebrated the wealth and vibrance of island literary talent. Authors can apply for author, the Writers' Marketplace, or both, via isleofwight.observer/IW-lit-fest. The deadline is midnight on July the 31st. Tickets for the festival are expected to go on sale in August.
Police highlight ASB crackdown. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police is supporting Antisocial Behaviour ASB Awareness Week, which aims to encourage communities to take a stand against ASB and highlight the help available to those affected. ASB Business Crime and Problem Solving, PS Chris Collins said, "We take all reports of antisocial behavior extremely seriously because we know the impact it has on communities. Our officers always look to make use of the powers that we have. When appropriate, we can authorize dispersal orders, carry out dedicated patrols and work with partners and the courts to secure closure orders on nuisance properties. Our teams also work tirelessly to provide evidence so the courts can hand out criminal behavior orders to help persistent offenders limit their offending. In recent weeks, we have secured closure orders, carried out dedicated patrols, and seized nuisance vehicles. Throughout the summer, we will continue to work with the local community and our partners to make your areas a safe place for people to live, work, and visit. Unfortunately, some people do not report antisocial behavior when they see it or experience it. Every report you make helps us to take action, and we are better able to tackle these problems when people report what is happening within their community. So please tell us. In May, Isle of Wight officers secured 3 partial closure orders on properties in Newport following reports of antisocial behavior and drug-related activity. Anyone experiencing antisocial behavior can report it through 111 or call 999 in emergency.
Coast Guard fury hits Westminster. Coast Guard rescue officers, CROs, from across the UK travelled to Westminster this week to highlight the impact of the government's decision to remove the modest payments they receive for call-outs, mandatory training and related duties. As previously reported, the move came after the Court of Appeal judgment in Maritime and Coast Guard Agency versus Groom, brought by Bembridge's Martin Groom, whose landmark case established that Coast Guard rescue officers meet the legal definition of workers and should receive proper employment protections. Martin served with Bembridge Coast Guard Rescue Service for 35 years until his dismissal in 2020. At the Westminster drop-in organised by East Wight MP Joe Robertson, MPs from across the political spectrum, including West Wight MP Richard Quigley, met officers to hear how the withdrawal of the payments, which equate to around £11 an hour, could affect recruitment and retention, putting coastal safety at risk. CROs are highly trained emergency responders who work alongside the other emergency services, attending cliff rescues, flooding, missing person searches and other life-threatening incidents. During a Westminster Hall debate, also held yesterday, Mr Robertson warned that the government's approach risked driving experienced volunteers out of the service. He urged ministers to pause the changes and consult properly with those affected. The government must not respond to a legal problem by creating a public safety problem, he said. Coast Guard rescue officers save lives, protect our coast and support public safety. Removing their modest remuneration is an insult to the brave men and women who keep our coastline safe. Martin added the last few weeks have been surreal, but the support has been overwhelming. To get a phone call from your MP asking you to do an interview with GB News first thing in the morning is a bit out of my comfort zone. Joe Robertson has been fantastic, as have the GMB, and serving CRO Kelly Stockdale has also been organising effective opposition to the proposals. There must be a positive outcome, or the Coast Guard service as we know it will cease to exist.
Follow the Isle of Wight foodies. Some of the Isle of Wight's best-known food and drink producers have joined forces for the first time to promote the island as a standout culinary destination. The New Island Foodie Collective brings together 10 independent brands whose products have become synonymous with quality, and crucially, each member also offers a venue where visitors can experience those products firsthand. The collective includes Adgeston Vineyard, Bridlesford Farm, Café Isola, Goddard's Brewery, Harvey Brown's Isle of Wight Distillery, Nunwell Farm Kitchen, and Bray, Quarabay, the Garlic Farm, and White Knuckle at the Point, Bembridge. At the heart of the initiative is a new visitor leaflet encouraging people to explore the island, meet producers and discover the stories behind the food and drink they enjoy. The map highlights locations offering everything from award-winning cheese, artisan coffee, and locally brewed ales to English sparkling wine, premium spirits, seasonal produce, and farm-to-table dining. As interest in food tourism grows, the collective aims to make it easier for visitors to connect with local businesses while supporting the farmers, growers, makers, and hospitality venues that play a vital role in the island's economy. Gemma at Harvey's Browns said the project celebrates the island's incredible community of independent food and drink businesses and encourages people to explore beyond the familiar. Leaflets are available at participating venues and ferry terminals, with more information on the collective's social media channels.
A prisoner refuses to go to court. A man with a life sentence who has so far spent 18 years behind bars, accused of attacking a prison officer at HMP Isle of Wight, refused to appear before magistrates for a second time. The man was listed to appear at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court via video link on Friday, June the 26th. He is accused of assaulting an emergency worker by beating at the jail's Albany wing on April the 9th. The court was told he declined to appear, having also refused to attend a previous hearing this month. When asked by the court clerk why he did not wish to appear, he replied, "I don't want to." "This is an ongoing problem," said Graham Heath, prosecuting. "It seems, although I'm sure they're very busy, they simply allow prisoners not to attend court if they don't want to. Prisons need to toughen up and indicate what efforts are being made, rather than allowing prisoners to simply say they don't fancy it and go back to their cell. The expectation on the next occasion should be that if there is a refusal, the prison produces him on CVP, a video link, or in person." Magistrates stated the man should attend the next hearing.
1-star rating for shop lacking in basic hygiene. A high street shop has been slapped with a 1-star food hygiene rating and handed 2 improvement notices after it was found to be failing to comply with the regulations. Afro White, which sells food from around the world and is based on Newport High Street, was inspected by an environmental health officer from the Alouette Council on the 21st of May. During the inspection, it was noted that the shop's general standard of hygiene was unsatisfactory in a number of areas. A meat cutter had old meat residue on its mechanical parts, posing a risk of bacteria being spread. Liquid from frozen raw meat had spilled over food packaging in floor-standing freezers on the shop floor and in the chest freezer in the back room, the report said. There was no hot running water at the wash hand basin, something which has already been raised at a previous inspection, triggering a food hygiene improvement notice. Washing up liquid was being used as a hand sanitizer. When asked to dry their hands, the inspector was given unclean toilet roll by a staff member wearing black disposable gloves that had just been used to handle frozen and wrapped foods in the freezer. The inspector found damaged walls, floors, and worktops, and various freezer trays were found broken and cracked. An electric fly killer was mounted directly above the food preparation surface, where raw meat was being defrosted and cut, creating a risk of dead insects falling upon food. The business did not have a suitable food safety management system, despite the issue being raised at an inspection in January 2025. Because of this repeated failure, the Council served a second formal food hygiene improvement notice. When questioned, the person in charge could not correctly state legal food storage temperatures and admitted guessing what the inspector says shows a lack of basic knowledge in food hygiene and safety elements. Labels on raw meat, cuts, repackaged in store were also missing mandatory information. The shop had a deadline to achieve measures set out on the notices and warned anyone knowingly in contravention of the notice could be fined or sent to prison for up to 2 years. The county press has contacted Afro White, which also has a sister business on Right High Street, for comment.
An Isle of Wight Spy album has returned to the island after 87 years. A personal photograph album has been returned to the Isle of Wight 87 years after it was first compiled. Owned by Dorothy O'Grady, the so-called Isle of Wight Spy, the album dates back to 1939 and was recently acquired by Restore the Story CIC after it appeared at auction. The organisation recognised its historical value and acted quickly to prevent it from being lost to a private collection. Steve of Restore the Story said, "As soon as we saw the album come up for auction, we knew we had to do everything we could to bring it back to the Isle of Wight. It's an incredible piece of our history and we're thrilled that visitors will be able to see it for themselves. This simply wouldn't have been possible without the support we've received over the years. Every person who has attended one of our talks, joined a tour, visited an exhibition, bought one of our publications or made a donation has helped us rescue and preserve another piece of island history. We'd like to say a heartfelt thank you to everyone who has supported us." The purchase was funded through Restore the Story's talks, guided tours, exhibitions and publications, along with donations from supporters. More than a simple photo collection, the album features enemy documents section stamps from 1940. Some photographs, thought to have attracted wartime investigative interest, have been removed, and O'Grady's name and address remain on a plate fixed to the cover. The album will go on public display for the first time during Restore the Story's Second World War exhibition at the Isle of Wight Steam Railway's 1940s experience, taking place on July the 4th and 5th. Visitors will be able to view the album and learn about the island's wartime history through additional displays. Volunteers will be on site to explain the album's significance and answer questions. Restore the Story is a not-for-profit community interest company focused on preserving and sharing the Isle of Wight's heritage. By securing artefacts like O'Grady's album, the group aims to keep the island's history accessible to the public.
Town Centre, house in multiple occupation, planned to house 19. A planned house in multiple occupation, HMO, in the centre of Newport has been revised upwards to accommodate 19 people. Zen Transformations has submitted updated site proposals relating to its application for a change of use of Chantry House, an historic Grade 2 listed building previously used as office space on Pyle Street. The latest plans show 6 ground floor bedrooms with kitchens and living room areas, 5 bedrooms on the first floor and a further 2 on the second floor. Zen Transformations proposal was earlier this year for a 15-person HMO. Concerns have been voiced over the issues such as a lack of suitable living conditions overdevelopment, as well as noise and thermal insulation. Councillor Julie Joan Evans, an independent Newport Central representative, previously said the living area is very small for 14 or 15 residents. Some of the rooms are very small. The kitchen is small for the amount of residents. I am concerned that this application is overdevelopment of this building. Its listed status being a great inhibitor to create fit-for-purpose living conditions for the residents, who deserve a decent living environment. This appears to maximize potential profit rather than think of the well-being of residents.
And now an article on the opinion of Josh Barry, the columnist. For almost a quarter of a century, the Isle of Wight Festival has gathered a reputation for showcasing the very best in music, cultivating a rich tradition of musical legends, mavericks and up-and-coming artists lining up to perform. Indeed, for one weekend each year, the great and good of pop come from all corners of the globe, across the Solent, to appear on the famous stage at Seaclose Park. The vast array of musical talent on a plethora of stages is well documented, and festival boss John Giddings and his team have created a unique footprint that island audiences seem to love. Yet perhaps what is lesser known is the community of local radio and press, which each benefit greatly from this weekend. For example, both the Isle of Wight County Press and Vectis Radio were present throughout the 4-day event, interviewing the vast array of acts on the bill and gauging the mood of the audience. The County Press live blog, available on the website countypress.co.uk, offered instant updates and reaction to the major events from the weekend. This fascinated me greatly, not just for the sheer volume of content which editor Laurie Little, chief reporter Oliver Dyer and the team created, but also for creating a comprehensive record of the themes that the festival may have brought. Obviously, the very nature of news and current affairs is that it's transient, and what may appear a story this week may be totally forgotten by next. Yet the Isle of Wight Festival is something known throughout the world, and the coverage created usually has the potential to transcend local media.
Local journalists also have a natural penchant for a local success story of a particular band or artist who has gone on to dominate the music scene, and there is no greater example of this than indie superstars Wet Leg. The County Press has been following the band's journey from the very beginning, and to now watch them warm up for the Scottish singer-songwriter Lewis Capaldi felt a defining moment for Isle of Wight music. Despite only being able to attain merely a few words with the band, journalist Jake Curran, working for the County Press, was still eager to celebrate their standing on the bill. The community of the island feels a sense of pride and ownership over the band, who are now representing local music on a worldwide scale. In this case, local press remains vital to continuing the narrative surrounding Wet Leg and their roots. In my view, there is a sense of affinity between them and the Isle of Wight audience, and it's a great shame that we did not have the opportunity to fully celebrate this with the group by way of being granted a full interview. This was my fourth year of attending the Isle of Wight Festival in a professional capacity, and despite interviewing a whole host of international music artists over the years, I have never reflected on the significance of local press. Yet on reflection, this community-centered media ecosystem may just be the most influential factor in keeping the Isle of Wight Festival true to its roots. Listen to Josh Festival podcast on Beyond the Title. Find it on Spotify or via his website. He interviews county press editor Laurie Little about the festival and the impact it has on the island, and several other people all connected with the event in some way. You can also listen to Josh's interview with Anastasia.
And now some shows from the island theatres. The White Strollers bring Beauty and the Beast to Medina Theatre from July the 10th to the 12th. Join them for this tale as old as time, with enchanting original and new songs, a cast of beloved characters, spectacular costumes, magical music, and a timeless tale of true love, individuality and friendship. Whether you're seeing it for the first time or the 50th, this is a show set to delight all ages. So gather your friends and family and be our guest with the White Strollers this summer as they raise as much money for island charities as possible, whilst having as much fun as possible and spreading as much joy as possible. Tickets via isleofwight.observer/beauty-beast. Curtain Call Creative's Newsies Junior is at Trinity Theatre on July the 18th and 19th. In the bustling streets of New York, a group of young newspaper sellers challenge powerful publishers in a fight for fairness and a better future. Led by the charismatic Jack Kelly, they discover the strength of friendship, courage and unity. Packed with impressive choreography, heartfelt storytelling and uplifting music, this musical celebrates bravery, determination and the power of young people working together. Energetic, inspiring and full of heart, Newsies Junior is a celebration of hope, courage and standing up for what's right. Don't miss your chance to cheer on the next generation of performers as they seize the day. Again, go to isleofwight.observer/newsies. On July 23rd and 24th, Raw Theatre Arts stages Fizzy, a sharp, funny and heartfelt play about friendship, music, memory and the messy business of growing up, at the Baptist Church transformed into Pier Street Playhouse for Ventnor Fringe. Set in a late 90s world of mixtapes, gig queues and borrowed bravado, it follows a tight-knit group of friends as they cling to each other and to the songs that say what they cannot. Beneath the humour and nostalgia lies something deeper, a story about illness, longing, identity, and the people who keep us going when life turns serious. Funny, fierce, and quietly devastating, Fizzy asks what we pass between each other. Songs, stories, pieces of ourselves, and what happens when the music fades. Tickets are via iw.observer/Fizzy.
Victory rolls at the ready. The Isle of Wight Steam Railway's 1940s experience returns this weekend, inviting visitors to step back into the decade of wartime music, vintage vehicles, and classic style. Crowds are encouraged to dress the part, and the railway says the event is always at its best when everyone embraces the look of the era. We gave some tips on how to dress the part a few weeks ago. And just as a 1940s outfit does not need to be complicated, neither does ladies' hair and makeup. Victory rolls remain one of the most recognizable styles of the decade and are surprisingly easy to achieve with plenty of hair clips. Start with dry hair and a little hairspray for grip. Take a front section, smooth it up, then wrap it around 2 fingers to form a neat loop. Roll it backwards towards the scalp and pin it securely. Repeat on the other side. Pin curls are ready and equally effective and even easier. Wind small sections tightly around a finger. Slide the curl off and pin it flat. Once set, brush gently into smooth waves. Makeup should echo their era's polished simplicity. A clean matte base, defined brows, and a subtle neutral eye create the right canvas. Finished with the unmistakable 1940s red clip. Choose a shade that suits your skin tone and keep the overall look fresh rather than heavy. Alongside the vintage styling, visitors can enjoy steam train rides, period music, and displays of wartime memorabilia throughout the Heaven Street site. The railway hopes the community will once again throw itself into the spirit of the weekend, helping to create the atmosphere of a decade defined by resilience, character, and unmistakable style. It promises to be a memorable weekend for families, vintage enthusiasts, and history lovers alike. Get your tickets on the door or via the iw.observer/1940s.
And now we go on to some letters. And the first one is from Anne Grant in Fareham, and it's entitled Drop Tank Info Given to Museum. County Press reader Andy Collis has responded to the appeal for information on the group photo featured in my Heritage article, Isle of Wight Links to Winner Fuel Tanks, on the 12th of June 1926. Andy said his uncle, Stan Bray, had an accident with a forklift at Saro Laminated Wood Products at the Folly site, Whippingham. The accident left Stan with a severe limp and he couldn't be called up to military service. Instead, he spent the war period there making drop tanks for aircraft. Saro was part of Saunders Row. This information has now been given to White Aviation Museum, where it has been recorded in the archive. As the museum had no other record of drop tanks being manufactured on the Isle of Wight, it is thanks to Andy that this has now been corrected.
Postal delays. Name and address supplied. Letter also sent to Royal Mail and Richard Quigley MP regarding postal deliveries. In recent months, my post has been reduced to about twice a week. Last week, there was just one delivery on Saturday afternoons, the 20th of June. There were 21 items and included a premium bond notification posted on the 26th of May, 2 power of attorney bank statements posted separately on 1st of June, my OVO bill posted on the 8th of June, as well as personal letters posted on the 8th of May and May the 10th, and data on my car insurance posted on the 11th of June. All were second-class mail. I have heard so many people on the island, as well as mainland friends and family, expressing concerns over letter postal deliveries that I felt this was an example you might like to look at. I live in an accessible building with parking, not in a rural setting or with difficulties or with difficult access. I hope the postal services realize that this delayed postal delivery style is not acceptable. I shall post these three letters today with first-class stamps, so they are in the post box for the morning collection tomorrow, just 24th of June. I hope you will receive them nearly as quickly. The editor's note: this letter was received on the 29th of June.
Christine James from Ryde says a splash park is needed. On a recent stroll along Ventnor seafront, I was so impressed to see what the town council have done with the Cascade Gardens and the little paddling lake with the Isle of Wight in the middle. It's all so well kept and clean. In comparison, we have the derelict splash park at the end of the boating lake here in Ryde. Surely, if Ventnor is able to maintain the cascade and paddling lake, Ryde should be able to as well. The splash park would be such a good facility for local families and also holidaymakers, particularly bearing in mind we keep getting sewage warnings for the sea, so parents could have somewhere safe for their toddlers to paddle.
Final letter. Not acceptable way to dress. Name and address supplied. The school uniform standards are diabolical these days. Surely skirts should be a similar length to those expected in the workplace. No one would turn up to work in a professional capacity with bare legs and their skirt skimming their bottom. So why are we showing children it is acceptable to dress like this for high school?
And that's the end of the county press this morning. That's goodbye from Lynn.
Goodbye from Gerard. The BBC In Touch programme follows, and the scaffolding news follows that.
Hello, this is the second in our occasional series of top tips on daily activities which help us visually impaired people preserve our independence. This week, as things don't come much more crucial for your independence than eating, we're tackling cookery. And this really is an exercise in getting a quart into a pint pot, because there's so much to say. So please don't expect us to cover absolutely everything. But we've invited 3 cooks with a variety of ages, degrees of sight and expertise to share it with you.
I'm Laura Faki, OBE. My previous job was a paracyclist. I used to race on the back of a tandem. I'm registered severely sight impaired and have been from birth.
Oh, hello there. I'm Christine Aspey. I'm 83 years old. I'm widowed, so I live alone. So life depends on myself only. I am registered blind through macular degeneration, but I do have some peripheral vision.
Hi, I'm Richard Lane. I'm in my late 50s. I've been blind for 35 years. And I've spent a good part of the last 35 years figuring out how to cook. And I enjoy cooking very much.
Well, that's a good start for all of you. I think we should start with organisation, how to set up your cooking space for maximum efficiency as a blind or partially sighted cook. And you've all mentioned this to us. Laura, I'm going to start with you because you indicated to us that your kitchen was a bit of organised chaos, which seems surprising for a visually impaired cook. So perhaps you'd like to explain.
Yeah, I watched the film once and it always said the genius is in the organised chaos, and maybe that's me. But yes, if a sighted person looked at any of my cupboards, they would run a mile. But I know where everything is because I put it all away. So I just mentally map wherever anything is. And I must admit, if someone else puts something away and they don't put it back right, I do get quite stressed.
Richard, the first thing you said to me was the need to have space to cook in. Just explain what your organisational priorities are.
Well, I mean, I think it's a general principle in life, actually, not just if you're visually impaired, that preparation is a good way of preventing poor performance. Whether you're a journalist or cooking your dinner or whatever. And I'm fortunate to have a decent-sized kitchen, some good flat work surfaces, and it's absolutely essential that the first few moments are clearing away any debris, getting rid of any other plates, dirty dishes, whatever it is, and make sure you've got your space mapped out. That is the first thing you do. Oh, and also I always put the kettle on, because not to make a cup of tea, but I always find out that I need to add hot water to stuff. And I think it's just one of the things I always do first. Clear the space, put the kettle on.
Any tips if you actually haven't got a big house or a big kitchen, but you still have to cook, but haven't got much space?
Yeah, exactly. I don't have a huge house, but I've got a nice kitchen cooking area. You've just got to maximise that space, of course. And that's even more important to get your preparation, doesn't it? Get everything else out of the way. So whether you've got 1 square metre or 4 square metres, know your space, get it ready, maximise it, and be organised, be prepared.
Now, Christine, you too said how important it was to have a place for everything, I think, and everything in its place. So tell us about your setup and how you like to work, because your sight has deteriorated over the years, hasn't it?
And it's still deteriorating, so my needs change from week to week. Yes, I agree, everything has to be in its place, in the place that I know it is. and always have known it is. I get things prepared in a very small area. I've got a bigger kitchen, but I stick to one small area next to the kitchen sink where I can immediately put all the cuttings, the rubbish and that sort of thing, and then put it into a bin. Also, my cupboards, I know exactly where everything is. I have a system for that, and of course I use things to identify what is in there, but perhaps we'll come on to that later.
I think we probably will.
Yes.
I'm going to stay with you though, Christine, for the next section, which is gadgets. You know, you said, I think, when you talked to us, you didn't want a lot of gadgetry because you didn't want a cluttered work surface. Why so? What kind of gadgets don't you have, if you like, if I can put it that way?
Well, the reason I don't particularly want gadgets is that at my age, I don't want to learn how to use new technology necessarily and clutter up the kitchen work surface. My Alexa in the kitchen is my very best friend because she does all sorts of things, converts quantities, takes recipes for me, gives me recipes. She is brilliant. And also my iPad. I use Seeing AI to read things from labels. I use Seeing AI to perhaps convert something handwritten into text and voiceover to read that back to me. So perhaps that is new technology.
Well, that is very new technology, actually. So that's a good example. Are there other, what you might call tangible things that you use, bits of it, equipment? And what about the way you cook and what you cook on?
I've kept a gas hob, and I use that, of course, with bump-ons, so that I know when it's on or it's off. The other gadget in the kitchen that I have, which is modern, is an espresso coffee machine. I put cold water in the little tank at the back, so I'm not dealing with boiling water, and then the coffee comes out at the other end hot. So no need to boil a kettle for coffee, which I find, for me, is useful. I use a set of American measuring cups, like mini saucepans, to convert from, say, 4 ounces to American cups.
I don't think you use talking scales, do you?
No, I don't, because to learn to use things with buttons and new icons on, for me, is a challenge. And I probably wouldn't use it probably more than 3 or 4 times a month. So why take up the cupboard space and the kitchen worktop using it? And I don't have an air fryer either for the same reason.
Ah, right. We'll develop that a bit more. Richard, Christine still has some vision. You don't. What difference does that make to the equipment that you do have? And what do you do most of your cooking on, for example?
Yeah, well, my wife and I moved house 3 years ago, and we were confronted by a lovely modern kitchen with an induction hob with a visual touch screen panel. Not terribly helpful, trying to put bump-ons on that.
Don't start on touch screens on this programme.
I know that's a red rag to a bull.
Yeah.
So anyway, battling away with an induction hob that wasn't accessible, and the bump-ons kept coming off because of cleaning the oven top. So actually I thought, why didn't I do this 2 years ago? I just found an induction hob, quite an expensive one, a Smeg one. They're quite high-end. But the whole point, it has a retro fit, so it's got buttons on it. It looks like an old oven, levers on it, dials. So it's an induction hob, but you can turn them around. It's completely tactile, and it's changed my life ever since I got it. I love it.
And we probably should say at this point, others are available other than the one that you mentioned.
No, there are 3 or 4. I think there are 3 or 4.
Right.
But I thought I do so much cooking, I'm going to go push and get the best possible quality one, and that's what I did. The talking microwave, I've been using for 20 years, the same thing. Couldn't live without it. And interesting, Christine mentioned the air dryer, not having one. We've got one, but I don't use it. It's not very accessible. But in lieu of doing this programme, I've looked into it. I've just ordered a talking air fryer, and it's arriving in a few days' time. Can't wait.
We made you spend some money, have we?
You did, as ever.
Laura, what about you? What methods do you use? And I mean, perhaps you've heard some of the things that the other two use, but tell me what you do.
I also have a talking microwave. I got my talking microwave in my first year at uni when I was 18 years old. And so that's now coming up to its 20th year with me. Now, I know that it was someone else's before mine. Someone gave me it for free because they are incredibly expensive, which is a frustration for a lot of visually impaired people, is the cost of accessible equipment. So I don't know how old this microwave is, but it's almost like my baby because it's lived with me and it's moved around wherever I've gone. It's come with me. I swear by talking kitchen scales, especially coming from kind of when I was competing full time as an elite athlete. having to kind of weigh out my food portions and knowing exactly what I was putting into my body. It was really important for me to be able to weigh things.
Right. We should have mentioned before that you were a Paralympic cyclist of some considerable talent. But I guess that means nutrition and thinking carefully about health and food. Any things you would particularly address to a visually impaired audience, perhaps particularly people starting pretty much from scratch?
I guess it's just about trying to think about putting together balanced meals, really. Someone always said to me, like, eat the rainbow. Now, I know as a visually impaired person, you might not be able to see the colours of all the vegetables, but you can still get a real kind of appreciation of a variety of different textures, so pairing different vegetables, so you get like a nice soft sort of mushroom and then a crunchy broccoli, so you can kind of keep it interesting by playing with different textures.
I want to ask you all, blind and partially sighted people are always looking for workarounds. What are some of your best workarounds? Christine, I think you use elastic bands for differentiating some of your species.
Yes, I do.
Your spices,
for instance, I used to be able to fill up a salt and a pepper grinder, my own. I can't do that anymore, so I buy them already filled, I suppose disposable, and I put a couple of elastic bands around the salt one, so I don't even have to look as which is the salt and which is the pepper grinder. I can feel the elastic band on the salt. I also, on my herbs and spices, I buy the Tesco's herbs and spices in little glass jars, square jars, because all the Tesco own make, all the herbs have green tops, and all the spices have orange tops. But also, added to that, they have the initial letter on the top of what is in them. So if you're storing them in a larger box, there'll be a big C on an orange top for cinnamon, and perhaps a big O on the herb jar for oregano. And those that I use most frequently...
easy to see, that's the point, really.
Easy to see, but also for those I use most frequently, for, say, making a cake, I put elastic bands around. I once put cumin instead of cinnamon in a cake, which is rather strange.
I did that, but with smoked paprika. I was making French toast, and instead of cinnamon, I put smoked paprika in, and it was just... Yeah, my little lad, he's 3 years old, he was not amused.
No, you've preempted my question about biggest disasters. Richard, would you like to add a disaster to that, or have you never made a mistake?
Oh, Peter, please don't assume that. I've made tons of mistakes. But the most recent one was the bad one a few years ago. I couldn't understand why the chili con carne I was making was smelling of burning. It's when I had a gas hob before I had the induction hob in my previous house. And anyway, to cut a long story short, the end of my apron that I was wearing had dropped into the gas flame. And I wasn't aware of it. So I was slowly setting light to myself as I was cooking the chili. Fortunately, a friend was in the house at the time and came into the room. And as they came in, I said to him, "Oh, look, help! I think I'm on fire." And there was quite a bit of flame going on. It was pretty scary.
Yeah.
And it was fine. So, of course, there's a little lesson. If you're using gas, keep those apron strings well away.
Well, the object of this programme was to encourage people to cook, not to scare the living daylights out of them. But it leads me, again, neatly, thank you all. I wonder how you all develop the confidence to cook. I mean, I know, Christine, you were cooking, so it's how you had the confidence to keep cooking, I guess. Because after all, as Richard's just indicated, there's a lot can go wrong in a kitchen. You know, spills, burns, a ruined meal. How would you give confidence to the beginner? I'm going to start with Laura on that one. Because you really believe in this idea of cooking is independence, don't you?
It is, and I've always said, so for someone like myself, I try to be as independent as possible, but I do have to rely on people to help me at times. So being able to cook a meal for someone feels really quite liberating, and, you know, to be able to cook and provide for your family and your friends is something that I'm proud of. And so, yeah, I think the biggest thing, we've covered it a lot, is take your time, do all the preparation first so that you're not stressing and running around, so that, you know, you do all your prep, you've cut everything, then you move on to the cooking part, so you're not to-ing and fro-ing and And I also say, try and keep things to the bare. If I can, I cook with one pan. I try as much as possible to keep to
Good
one
tip.
pan. You know, I'll cook pasta in with the sauce, or it takes a bit of playing around, but just to take any of the stress out.
Richard, you were confirming that, I think.
I think so. I think it's not just about one pot cookery, but if you're setting out and you're trying to build confidence, then one pot cooking is a good place to start. And the great thing about one pot cooking, I always use really big pots as well, with big sides on that, so you're not going to spill easily and all the rest of it.
So this is the whole thing about pouring, isn't it?
Pouring and size, go big. And also go heavy if you can, if you can cope with heavy stuff, because you don't want stuff moving around on a hob and you want it to be solid. And I like that security of things not moving around with steep size. But with one pot cooking, you're getting your veggies in. If you're not vegetarian, you can be doing your meat in there. You can prepare it on the top, then put it in the oven, and you can end up with an absolutely delicious, nutritious meal, which will give you confidence. You've only really used one pot. The other quick tip I would give is always have sharp knives and use a chopping board I do that is raised on 3 sides. So it's almost like a chopping board where you don't lose all your stuff.
That sounds a bit counterintuitive to tell blind people to use very sharp knives.
Because sharp knives are safer than blunt knives.
They're much safer, because if you're using a blunt knife, you've got a risk of it slipping off, and that's when it'll catch your fingers. Right. Whereas a sharp knife, it grips straight away, it goes through, and you've just got, again, having weighted pans, having weighted knives, it's all the same. It just gives you a little bit more control.
And Christine, what about the confidence to keep cooking, as you have done as your sight's got worse?
I think that because I was cooking for so long, I've had to just adapt and modify what I was doing before and really create or invent new ways of doing things that I was previously doing. I haven't had any dreadful mistakes, but that's because I'm limited now, or I'm limiting myself to what I actually do. Not limiting the sort of food I eat, but not being as quite adventurous. And again, one dish cooking, some delicious recipes. I always steam vegetables because if you simmer them, you have boiling water to deal with to drain them, don't you? If you steam them, you can take them off with the steamer and the boiling water can be left to cool in a pan. Or I might do them in a microwave if the vegetables are suitable.
Right.
Great tip. Great tip.
Good tips from all of you. We need to be quite quick on this, so I can't have full recipes. But for the complete novice, a first meal, something you can't muck up that won't be embarrassing when you present it to your family or even to yourself. I won't accept Weetabix or indeed any other cereal. Christine, can I throw that at you?
It's something, very simple when people pop in. 2 tortilla wraps, spread the lower one with, say, grated cheese, a few tomatoes, some olives, some capers, anything you like, some oregano. Put the other one on top and then lightly oil a frying pan. Squish it down, fry one side and turn it over, fry the other side, and you can cut it up into sort of slices, and that's a good with a salad or a snack for grandchildren, whatever.
OK. And you're confident frying still?
Well, you're not using very much oil,
no.
And if you have a heavy pan, yes, you're not using deep oil. It's just sort of lightly greasing the pan, yes.
Richard, simple one meal?
Well, I suppose the simplest thing would be to put potato in the oven, wouldn't it? Is that allowed?
Have you ever done anything's allowed if you think it works?
I was going to say the baked potato with cheese and beans.
I mean, to be honest, it's delicious. It's simple, but if you want to start somewhere, start there. That's where I started. And I've gone on from there. And I'm not a high-flying chef or anything like that now. Just more confident because of experience.
And
but
Laura,
that's a good place to start.
And that was yours, Laura, as Richard's pinched yours.
But I guess another one is, a tin of tuna and an avocado, mash them both together, bit lemon juice.
Yeah,
you can get like a bottle of lemon juice so you can squeeze it. And then that you can put in a wrap. You can boil some pasta. You can put that over pasta. You can put it in a sandwich. You can do anything with it. So whatever you're most comfortable with. You could even serve it on a baked potato.
There we go.
Thank you all. You've been absolutely brilliant, but we have to leave it there. We know there's much more to say. So why don't you, our listeners, say it to us and we'll return to the subject. Email in touch at bbc.co.uk or leave your voice messages on 0161 836 1338. Many thanks to our experts, even if they are too modest to say that is what they are. Laura Facky, Richard Lane and Christine Aspey. And from producer Beth Hemmings and me, Peter White, goodbye.
Scaffolding and skips news. Week commencing 6th of July. Newport area, 62 St James Street. 121 St James Street. Roach Pittis, 60 to 66 Lugley Street. 12 St James Street. 34 Upper St James Street. And 31 Orchard Street.
Ryde area, 141 High Street. Morrison's Daily, Union Street. NatWest Bank, 5 Union Street, 53 Union Street.
Cowes and East Cowes area, 29 Cross Street. The Parade Public Toilets, Bath Road. Eremue, Court Bridge Road. And 36 Sun Hill.
Ventnor area, Ventnor Youth Centre, Victoria Street. Rose Inn, Pier Street.
Sandown area, 27 High Street.
Yarmouth area, none.
Alveston area, Alveston Farmhouse, Main Road.
Brading area, Old Town Hall, High Street.